So, hello everyone. I'm RJ St. Thomas. I'll be your host for this new episode. Welcome to My Path of Asha, where we share the stories of those walking the path of Asha and bringing the light of Ahura Mazda into the world. So, today with us, we have a very special guest named Katie Powers, woman who has been really devoted to this faith and has been a long time practitioner. I mean, let me see, you've been about Zoroastrian for about 2 years now, haven't you? It's been
Yep.
about, so yeah, you've been with us for a while. So I know the whole audience will be more than happy to hear your story and hear what brought you closer to Ahura Mazda. So for the first question, Katie, tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, how you were raised, what you were raised with spiritually, and how that shaped you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, very
Um,
welcome.
I grew up in Iowa City for my first 8 years, and then I moved to Chicago, a suburb of Chicago, for the next 10 years. I would say it was a moderately diverse suburb for a suburb, but still, most people in my community were Christian, and my family was Christian as well. So we were part of a Presbyterian church, and I was pretty heavily involved in the Presbyterian church from like sixth grade through 12th grade. I even was a youth group leader as a junior and senior in high school, teaching middle schoolers about Presbyterianism. So that was a really big part of my life. The Presbyterian faith was kind of difficult for me as a kid to really understand. It's a Christian faith that believes in predestination. So essentially, you are either predestined to go to heaven or you're not, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And that was really hard for me as a kid to think, maybe I'm not going to heaven and I can't do anything about that, but I'm
Mhm.
still expected to follow all of these rules that I also like don't really understand. And just knowing that as a kid you sin and there's nothing that you can do, there's nothing that you can do to fix it. That was something that I really struggled with growing up. But because my community was so heavily involved in the church, there wasn't really a lot of room for thinking outside of that or exploring outside of that, at least growing up.
Absolutely, I can relate to that 100% because I grew up actually in a household with two different sects of Christianity. My dad was a Catholic, but he eventually gave in because of my mom to be more on the Protestant leaning side. But my mom was a devoted Baptist growing up, so I grew up with being very involved with going to church every Sunday. My mom would always play our little local Christian radio stations. We would look at TBN. Basically, the Word of God or the Bible was played throughout my house just daily, and so I was really just indoctrinated into just believing that Christ is the only way, and like you're saying, we're sinners. We don't have any redemption outside of that. And I really liked how you brought up predestination because I really do think that that's been one of the things that has bothered me as a convert to this religion because Christianity teaches you that you have no power, that it's only through God, through the blood of Christ, that you have any sense of power. Everything else that you do, it's as filthy as rags, and it's like fighting the wind. You can't change your fate. And then when you hear that, you kind of just withdraw from the world, and you feel like no matter what you do, or even the evil and injustice you see around you, you just fall back and think that, oh, that's just God's will. It's part of his plan. And so you kind of lose that incentive to really want to go out and make a better change. And I can tell that when you became a Zoroastrian, I know as we'll answer the questions further, but you feel more empowered knowing that, there isn't a predestination. There is a continuum going on, knowing that you can actually have the ability to change the course of your reality or your own personal life and our very world around us. So yeah, I really do think that predestination is something that is very self-defeating, and I'm very glad that even you witnessed that very same thing that bothered me as a kid. So shows you're on the same page.
Yeah.
So, so
Yeah, there's
for
a lot of like fear and anxiety. I feel like there's just that constant fear that you're doing something wrong. And a lot of times you're like, I don't even know if I'm doing something wrong, but I feel like I'm being judged for it. And that was so hard, especially as a kid, like trying to figure out who you are in the world and then just
Hmm.
constantly feeling like you're set up to fail. So that was really always in the back of my mind, like growing up as well.
Absolutely. And and even going further that before our next question is that even like as an African American, I kind of felt like you have this duality going on. Like you're already kind of born in this country marginalized and you're thinking, okay, it's God's will, and then you see that, okay, well, you're a sinner, you're you're not a good person, you're wicked, you're a wretch. And so you really have these two combining forces, and it's like that just adds to that low self-esteem and that sense of being defeated. And like you're saying, just you're always looking like, am I doing it right, or is God gonna punish me for that? So it's just a lot of anxiety. And
Mhm.
yeah, I'm glad you're able to break away from that. So for our next question, I would say, so what does it mean? So sorry, when was it that one moment in your life that you started questioning or searching for something more deeper?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I really started questioning it in early high school, but just didn't really have the opportunity to do much about it because my social circles were completely tied up with the church. There wasn't, that would have really been frowned upon if I voiced any of those thoughts. So it really wasn't until college where I was around significantly more diversity, lots of people from different cultural backgrounds, religious backgrounds, and just the opportunity to define who I was and to start trying to figure out who I was outside of that more insular community that I grew up in. So, and I took some religion classes in college as well. I took a Western religion class my first semester, and then I took an Eastern religion class my second semester, which was really exciting to learn more than we learned in world history about these different
Mhm.
faiths. But I'd say by the end of like my first semester of college, I would consider myself an agnostic, and I wasn't really searching for. I was pretty content with just being an agnostic, um, because I was still kind of on that own personal journey of trying to figure out who I was. So it wasn't really until I was exposed to Zoroastrianism that I realized that I wanted to learn more about the faith.
Mm. Yeah, well, and that's the beauty of life when you're around diversity and different ways of thinking, different cultures. You can really almost like you said, you can find truth among them. Because I mean, among the Iranian community, who would I thought years later I would have found this religion? Growing up in Orange County, same thing, very diverse area. I grew up around a lot of Greeks, Arabs, a lot of Italians, and then of course you go down south of Orange County. There's a lot of Iranians and a lot of people from the Middle East. So you really just see a mosaic out here of different cultures. And when you're among them, it kind of just it sparks an interest in you to want to investigate and learn more about these people and see what they believe. And I'm like you for a minute. I wouldn't say I was agnostic, but I did, as I got to my late teens, I became very just let's just say open, like a more of an open-minded Christian, trying to search for the truth elsewhere because I was, like you said, this predestination and feeling defeated just wasn't working. So I said, let me try to experiment with different beliefs and faiths and spiritual systems, new age systems, or you can say, and to see like what is the truth. And I do think that that journey sometimes can have you reaching for more and more, but then if you really are looking for that one truth, you'll eventually find it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think for me, I was really frustrated and kind of angry at the Christian God. And I was really just ready to kind of put that in my past. So it was sort of a relief in some ways to say, there could be a God, but I don't know. And I'm content not knowing. And just kind of letting the universe work itself out for me. So yeah, slightly different. I didn't really try to seek other religions other than just learning more about them, so I wasn't as ignorant. But I didn't really like go and experience them from a religious standpoint by like going to temples or anything like that.
Mm. No, that's beautifully said. And I do think that that's ultimately the very thing that you know we look for is like once you leave the boundaries of Christianity and or the confinements that you had, you just feel a sense of relief because you're thinking that, oh, only through Christ you can have happiness or joy or a sense of belonging, but at the same time you just feel that there's something more. And I was just thinking that maybe it was just me, but I see that this is something that is far too common. And I do think that, and I'm sure you noticed, I think once you release that and you realize that, hey, you know what, I have the ability to make change with my own actions, whether I know you were agnostic at the time, but you still at least felt more in control of your life, as opposed to just feeling I'm on this rock, not knowing how my life will play out. And I do think that's beautiful, just having that release.
Yeah, it was very empowering to say, like, I'm in charge of my own destiny and my own path. I think that was really, really empowering, really freeing, especially as someone who just left home for the first time.
Absolutely. Well, beautifully said. So for our next question, so how did you first come across the Zoroastrian faith?
Yeah. So I remember the first time I learned about Zoroastrianism, like to the day, because it was in my world history textbook in high school. But it was literally just like a footnote. I think it said something like Zoroastrianism is the predates Judaism as the world's oldest still practiced monotheistic religion. I don't even think my teacher of the time mentioned it in class. I just happened to read it in the textbook. And then on my first date with my now husband, he told me that he was Zoroastrian, and he
Mhm.
asked me if I knew what it was. And it was kind of like a quiz, because he said that none of his previous dates had ever known what it was. And he was really surprised that I remembered it from my high school textbook.
Mhm.
And then he told me, it's about good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. But he didn't go into much more detail at that time. So that was kind of like my first remembering of Zoroastrianism.
Excellent. See, and it's amazing how it stuck with you because, many people probably who have studied world religions, they'll forget about it, and it might just be sort of like a relic to them. But the fact that you had somebody in contact with you and you remembered it almost showed you like maybe this faith was already calling you there. And kind of like with me growing up, because I remember watching a documentary about Cyrus the Great and him freeing the Jews from Babylon. And I remember in the documentary, I believe it was on that channel A&E, but this was many years ago, like on probably, God, maybe like in 2000. But I just remember how it mentioned Zarathustra being this fire worshiper from the East. And then for me, also Freddie Mercury and the band Queen found out, years later that he was the same person and well, same practitioner of the religion. And I'm just like, wow, it's amazing how these two great men, who changed the world, and one with his music and one with his champion of human rights and human diversity, just made so many tremendous wonders for our planet. And that really inspired me. But of course, I'm pretty sure it was kind of difficult for you at first to be like, well, where do I go? What book do I read? What temple do I go to? And but I think lucky for you, you had somebody who was already involved. For me, it was like trying to, go through a cultural barrier at the time because I really didn't really understand Persian culture and everything that much as I wanted to, historically wise. But thankfully, with the internet and connections, things like that can make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been really hard if I was trying to do it on my own. So I'm really grateful for our Ashes family because they've really opened me with welcome arms and they've been so willing to teach and to show me without any of the pressure of saying, you need to convert, you have to believe in our faith if you want to be with our son. Um,
Hmm.
so they were just so kind and so welcoming that that allowed me to really take my time to learn about it gradually and come around on my own to wanting to join.
Absolutely. And you see the different spirit too, because most religions and most cultures on this planet, and it's not to insult them, because people have their tradition and their ways, and I know we have to respect that as citizens of the world, but you really felt that Zoroastrianism was like, hey, you know what? If you want to believe, you're more than welcome to. There's no pressure, there's no shotgun behind you. It's just like, hey, if you want to live a life of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, you want to know Ahura Mazda, come on your own accord. And then you see the nature of Ahura Mazda. He's kind, he's loving, he's not aggressive, he's not domineering, not wrathful. It's like he honors your free choice. And I know you probably felt that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Just the choice was really amazing. The choice and also the way that they think about God walking, like you can walk alongside God, not as a
Mhm.
servant, not in subservience, but really as like a friend. And that was really, and like a coworker. And I thought that was such a remarkable way of seeing God.
Absolutely. That's beautifully said. Just imagine now, most gods in this world tell you to get on the floor, show submission. Some want you to have penitence and or they believe that God is too holy for you, so you have to have this almost distant like relationship, even though he claims to has given his son for you, or or some people tell you that your God is he's only there for you on certain conditions. Whereas, like you mentioned, Ahura Mazda, he mentions in the Gathas, I believe it's in the Yasna 50. He mentions how he's like a friend. He's like your heavenly father, and he's like a brother to you, holding you by the hand. And it's beautiful just knowing how a God is right beside you, as opposed to feeling as if you need to fear him, because you don't see nowhere in the Gathas or anywhere in the Vesta where you're told to fear Mazda.
Right, 100%. Like I think that's remarkable. The lack of fear in this faith is really incredible.
Absolutely. So, to our next question, what would you say that it was about the faith that really spoke to you the most?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. I think the emphasis on equality, like gender equality, was really refreshing. At first, I that was like one of the first things that struck me was women are equal to men. Women can
Mhm.
climb the ranks to the same level as men. I thought that was amazing. The focus on environmentalism and really caring about this earth and what we can do to make the place we are right now better. um, and then just the idea that your mind is good and you should trust it. You can trust your own mind, your own thoughts, and that your thoughts can make the world better, and that you can actually, you as an individual can make a huge difference in the world. And that we are aspiring to make our current planet perfect. We're not thinking about, what is the afterlife? We're not focused on those what ifs. We're really focused on the here and now.
Yeah, that was beautifully said, and I love how you frame that, because I do think that a lot of people in society they're really looking for being empowered. And I tell them, like, as you mentioned with the women's rights and Zoroastrianism, it's amazing how over 4,000 years, or if not 5,000 years ago, this man from what we call Ariana Veja or Greater Iran was the first to address men and women equally. I mean, I was always taught growing up that it was Jesus who freed the women, because you hear about how he freed Mary Magdalene, but Zarathustra, and he was the one that said that, hey, every man and woman has it within them to decide for their own, to make the right choice, even with his daughter. And I believe it's the last song, I think it's the 17th song of the Gathas, where he told his own daughter, hey, you know what? You have the right to choose for yourself who you want to be with. Just use vohumana and live by righteousness. It's not like he's telling her, like, in a patriarchal sense, oh, you gotta marry who I tell you to. He's like, no, choose. Even in the Hopton Gati, which is like the I know some people say it's considered the words of Zarathustra. Some people say it's the disciples of Zarathustra, but I believe it's in Yasna 42:1. It says that may a good governor, man or woman, lead us to happiness, or lead us to a better life in this life and the next. And it's beautiful just how women are seen as equals. We don't have to have this sense of knowing that women are to be below men. And our society even to this day is a bit misogynistic. We have the red pillars, and we have all this everybody nowadays wants to talk about they're the alpha male, and women are hypergamous. So you got a lot of this stuff in society today that I would say is really going backwards. It's not putting faith in women. And women are just as important as men, and they're a driving force. And I do think that if more people knew about Zoroastrian, and more women knew about him, they can see how you can feel empowered without needing these other titles. You don't need to necessarily say you're a feminist. I mean, I tell women, no, you're more than welcome to call yourself that, but you're already in Mazda's eyes, you're already seen as equal to men. And it's like that respect that you already have is already guaranteed and self-evident just in itself. So it was very beautifully said. So
Yeah,
let me see.
yeah,
To our
I agree.
next
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
no, no,
think
no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go. So that was my
I
mistake.
like how you mentioned like how progressive the Gathas are, because I definitely think they were very progressive for their time. But I also think that the faith is designed to be progressive as
Mm,
well. Like, you know, Zarathustra had no idea what the world would look like 4,000 years from now. Um, and yet, like, the words that he wrote are applicable now. And the faith is flexible enough to allow, as society grows and changes, the faith adapts to that too. So it's not
mm.
rigid, it's not as structured, and it's meant to grow, which I think is really amazing too.
Absolutely. It really reflects that nature of spentimania, that progressive mentality, that progressive force. Because I do believe in life, everything is evolving and changing. And believe it was Dr. Jaffrey in one of his books talking about how, in life, technology is going to change, cultures are going to change, customs are going to change. But one thing about the Gothas is that it's not this rigid book or this prescriptive book of do's and don'ts, because I think even the nature of Spentimania that inspired our prophet Zarathustra knew that in time, all these prescriptions are going to make your religion rigid, and it'll make it no different than the other world religions. Like you see in today, how, in the Catholic Church, women can't become priests, they can't become bishops or cardinals. You see it in Islam, women can't become imams or have any other prominent positions. And, you really just see that women are capable, but yet they're not given that chance. But the beauty of Zoroastrianism is that it says that no, you already are inherently born on equal terms of men, and you have that same gift as anybody else. And I do believe that progressiveness of Spentimania is what can transcend, because I do think that as Zoroastrians, we're always going to keep to our core traditions and which is Asha, but that progressiveness will allow us to be progressive while still maintaining the integrity of our faith. And that's what's so beautiful about it. I always said that our faith is like the fire, which is, I think, is the most beautiful symbol, because fire, it gives light to illuminate, and it never takes one shape. It's always changing form, and it's kind of showing you that no fire burns the same. And fire purifies, and it also gives heat to where it can create, like, the industries that we have in the world is all because of fire. And so, I tell that the faith is like a living fire, and that fire is progressive and expansive.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's well said.
Yeah, absolutely. So now for another question of ours. So was there a particular teaching, prayer, or verse that deeply moved you?
So I read this book, The Gathas by Dr. Jaffrey. That was kind
Mm,
of my first like foray into learning on my own. And there's a quote that I wanted to read. Let's see. He said, "Every religion offers a conception of the relation of humanity to divinity, and Zarathustra's religious vision of humanity, realizing the divine plan, works to implement it in the world. We humans of goodwill cooperate with the divinity in bringing about the establishment of truth. We are not viewed as estranged from God, nor servants paying worship to God, nor insignificant, unworthy creatures, but the co
mm,
workers of God in the vindication of the great cause, bringing about the regeneration of the world towards its divinely intended perfection."
mm,
And that was on page 41 on the book that I had. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just such an amazing faith. That was probably the paragraph where I was like, I need to be part of this. I need to learn more.
mm. Absolutely. That's beautiful. Just knowing that, that you're not just a wretch, that you are somebody that is here with a purpose. And I do think that, in life, people want to find their purpose. And I do think that they can find that being a Zoroastrian, because, every one of us has within us gifts and talents, and we are all here as, like, now, as we say, as co-workers, but we're all here to add to that uniqueness as co-workers. Every one of us has like a unique, I would say, spice to add to life, and we're all here to add to that little mosaic of greatness. And I do believe that you know we kind of transcend from a Christian belief system like us and go to a Zoroastrian one. You see that you're not here to just to believe that God has a purpose for you, but you are here to like shape your own reality, your own destiny. I know it might say a little new agey, but you're here to shape your own life by your very choice, because choice is so paramount to this faith. And without it, I can't really conceive the idea that how a person can be born with free will, but yet not have the ability to have a say in their own life. Because when we were Christians, we were told that, oh, well, if you want to be, let's say, an engineer, you probably shouldn't be that. God has something better planned for you. So you kind of go through life. And I will admit, for a number of years of myself, I was kind of drifting through life because I was always thinking that if I had a particular desire to be something and I didn't really have too much success with it, it was always, oh, maybe it's just not God's will, instead of me just persevering. And I do think that this faith teaches perseverance. And I was always kind of made to feel like I need to just easily give up and kind of let go and let God. And the fact that, you have that gift and that choice of freedom in this faith, because I know in the Gathas, I think it's 53, sorry, it's 53, it says that Mazda is the, is the guardian of freedom. And, when you hear that a God stands for freedom, as opposed to this submission. I mean, that's totally just refreshing. And I know you felt that reading that, and it's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's a completely new way of seeing the world and seeing faith. And I don't think I even had a concept that existed until I started digging into it further.
Excellent. So now to our next question, what would you say changed in your life after embracing Zoroastrianism?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just peace, being at peace with myself, trusting my own thoughts, trusting that what I think is good and will make the world better is actually good and will make the world better. There's just a lot of peace to trusting in yourself and trusting the people around you are also working to be good.
Mm,
I also think it's made me just view people differently. The concept that everybody is born good and everyone can be good if they like, even if they fall off that path of goodness, they can turn things around and they can turn away from that wrongdoing and come back to being good. So I don't think of anyone as, you know, not able to change. I think everyone has the potential to change and do better. And that's really made me view people with a lot more respect and a lot more grace, I think, as well. Just knowing that we all have that capability.
yeah, beautifully said. And I do think that's also very liberating because I've always was taught, growing up, oh, I'm not good enough. And I remember it's in the book of Deuteronomy. Again, it tells you basically if your righteous deeds was filthy as rags, and you just feel like no, it's like, what am I here for on this planet if I
Yeah,
can I
nothing
can
I
never be
can do
righteous?
is good. Yeah, no, even the best person on earth, if they don't believe in one specific person, their good works do nothing. That was just so hard to. That's such a hard concept to swallow. Um,
And it kind of made me in life to kind of take abuse, because it's like maybe if I work harder, maybe I'll be accepted. But then it's like, well, it's just God's will. I'm a wretch. I'm bad. I'm evil. I'm not deserving of grace and love. And because I was so devoted to my well, because I was more of a non-denominational Christian, but I was so devoted. I just remember just thinking, like, almost like I was like a monastic monk, like, oh, you're not worthy, you're not worthy, you're not worthy, you're not worthy. And then when you're out, with other people, like you're saying, I treated people differently. I kind of seen everybody as just evil, people who really did you wrong. They kind of deserve punishments instead of actually showing compassion, because you're always taught in Bible school to be loving, to show the love of Christ to others. But when you see the world as evil, other people as evil, you can't help but not express that contempt for others.
yeah,
Like you
you
become
internalize that for sure.
exactly, you become almost very spiteful. And it's just yeah, like it's almost like they want to talk about love, but I personally just found the moment I let Asha into my life and allow Vohumana, how I say it, see the world through the eyes of Vohumana. It's like you just see love, you see goodness, you see the openness to just give love. Like you said, you see people as good, you trust people, you feel more. at ease with others. And I understand we're not in a perfect world, but there's always that, like you're saying, that knowing that there's always potential for good in all things.
Yeah, it's like an endless potential, which I think is just really freeing as well.
Definitely. So for another question, so how do you live out the teachings of Zoroastrianism or Asha in your daily life?
Yeah. So early in my husband and I's relationship, I wasn't even thinking about becoming a Zoroastrian at that point, but I he got really upset with me because I told a lie. It was a white lie. It was something that I said without thinking, and then I thought more about it, and I changed my mind. But
Hmm.
in his mind, I had lied to him, and he was so upset because he was taught that lying is like one of the worst things that you can do, and he was just so convicted on how that's just something that he would never do. And I'd never seen someone truly be that convicted about a part of their faith. And that made me, from that day forward, just want to also be as honest as possible. Not honest to the point of causing people pain or harm, but to be very cautious with my thoughts and to think about what I say and how my words can affect others before I say anything without giving it a good amount of thought. And so, now that I am Zoroastrian, I think about that moment a lot where there are a lot of different choices I make throughout the day with my words and with my actions. And knowing that living out those convictions can impact somebody else who may never become Zoroastrian, but that living with that intention can really change the way somebody else views the world. So I think about that a lot, and I hope that my actions and my words are also, being a guidepost for other people to try to do the same.
Absolutely. Well, that was beautifully said. And you know what, your husband, yeah, that he reminds me a lot of me too, because I mean, I will admit, I mean, we're all far from perfect, and there's times where even I struggle every day, and I do think that the Zoroastrian path, while beautiful, it is difficult. It is challenging because, you want to maintain a standard, even, as somebody like me who was a convert, and now that I'm very involved with my community, I try to, watch what I say, and even again, they remind me to be as ethical as I can because I just see, at my local temple there, everybody is just so kind, so pure, trustworthy, and you see that throughout all kinds of Zoroastrian philanthropy, like you see with the Tatas and India and all throughout. Actually, I had a friend of mine. His name is Justin Humbrecht, or Humbach. He's half Irani and he's half German, but he goes to in India a lot, and he was just telling me how he had to fight a lot dealing with the other religious groups. Like he's like, oh, I'm always getting scammed here and there. Like I was gonna watch out for myself, but he's like, oh, but when I went to the Parsi or the Irani colonies like in Mumbai, he's like, the people were trustworthy. I didn't have to turn, I didn't have to look back over my shoulders in their neighborhoods or their quarters. And he's like, any deal I did with them, it was always honest and truthful. And I know this is also not really part of our let's say the Gothic scriptures, but it's part of the older Avesta. Like I know in the Mir Yast dedicated to the Yazada Mithra, I know like one of the first paragraphs says that basically that Mithra hates it when a person lies, and that when you're like dealing with like an agreement or a contract or like a friendship bond, it's like you know this angel or this Yazada, it hates it when you like breach your contract with that person or that bond. And what's so unique about it too, and in some religions, kind of tells you to treat other religions, other people, other religions certainly or differently. But it says in there that Mithra is for the believer and the unbeliever. So it's showing you that as Zoroastrians, we should be ethical and truthful to all people. We shouldn't just have this little mob or this mafia like mentality where like, oh, Zoroastrians get treated with the highest standard, everybody else gets treated like dirt, or we can swindle them and all that. But you see that truth and honesty is very paramount, and it's really difficult to uphold. And I will admit, because I mean, even similar like me, even though I've been a Zoroastrian about 8 years, every day I try to like do what your husband is doing, just try to emulate that every day.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that is just, I mean, I compare it to Christianity because that's what I grew up with, but the fact that he and now I want to be truthful and trustworthy and, you know, show the path of Asha just like in my day to day life, it's not out of fear or a sense of obligation. It's because I genuinely feel like that's the right thing to do, and that it will legitimately make somebody's life better, potentially make some small part of the world better. It's not because I'm doing it for future gain. It's not because I'm doing it because I'm afraid that I will go to hell. It's because I truly believe it's right. And I think when you really believe something's right, you are able to showcase that. It comes a lot more naturally than when you're doing it from some other obligation or
Yeah.
a reason that's not intrinsic.
Absolutely. Well, that's perfectly said. Because you know what? I think most people with religions, and it's not, I know it's not their fault how they've been trained to believe, but unfortunately, there's this transactional mentality going on. People think that they should do good because it'll get them a special place in heaven. It'll avoid hellfire, or they might get some sort of reward here on earth too. But it's always done because of some sort of underlying motive, and it's like it goes back to our prayer, Shem Vahu, where it tells us, righteousness for the sake of righteousness alone. And if you simply can just do what's right because it's right, I think you're ahead of everybody. And because it's like, it's not telling you to do anything ritualistic or extravagant or mad. It's just telling you, hey, if you know what's right, just do what's right. It's self-evident. Just do the right thing because it's right. And I believe that's all you got to do.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So for our next question, we got a few more after this one. So, what does the concept of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds mean to you now as a Zoroastrian?
Yeah, I think good. I always start with good thoughts, because I think your words and your actions stem from your thoughts. And I've mentioned it already, but just being able to trust my thoughts, trust that what I think is good, and that I should act on that.
Mm.
I think the words really are just an extension of your thoughts, and then your deeds tie it all together. So I don't think that you can have good thoughts without good words and without good deeds. I think you have to have all three for them to work the way that they're meant to.
Yeah, beautifully said. I do think that, yeah, you need to have a sense of it's like a foundation, some kind of like with the concept of the Amish Spentas. There's Asha. Well, actually, there's Vohumana, there's Asha, there's Spenta Armati, there's Kashatra Vairya, there's Havertot, and there's Amertot, and all these all are kind of like the chakras, they all align, but they create that wholesomeness. And I do think that, like you said, if you have those good thoughts, you're able to know, what a good deed is. And from those good deeds, you can continue cultivating the good. And I do think that just yeah, like you said, when you have those three things, they all complement each other like a trinity. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
for our next question, so what would you say to someone who's curious about Zoroastrianism, but if they're unsure if they belong, or let's say they're too afraid of, investigating and becoming part of the faith?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that Zoroastrianism is for everyone. It's not just for people who are born into it, even though it's not a religion that's necessarily going around and trying to gain converts. It's definitely still a very welcoming religion for those who are going to seek it out and genuinely want to learn more. Um, I know it's a little bit difficult because we don't have as many, especially English books, to be a starting point or a guidepost. But I would definitely suggest starting with Dr. Jeffrey's books. They're short, they're very easy to read, and I think they do a really great job of explaining the bulk of the tenets of the faith. And then from there, if they're excited and they want to learn more, I would suggest getting in a group. Like we have got our WhatsApp group where people are able to ask questions. Some are really basic questions about the faith. Some are very philosophical, and it's available to everyone. And everyone in that group really wants to teach and help others, and grow together. So that's been a huge help for me, just growing and learning more is with that WhatsApp group. And then as well, temples, if you're interested in a more structured faith, or if you're used to going to church every Sunday, going to temple may be something that you might want to add into your weekly cadence as well. That hasn't really been something that I personally have added, like as a week to week thing, but mostly just because we don't have a Persian temple within a couple hundred miles of us. So we would have to go to Dallas to be part of a Persian temple. But
Mm,
I'd say even if there's not one in your community, you can still definitely be part of the faith.
absolutely. I like that because you know what, your commitment to this religion and everything it stands for, it's inspiring because especially as Americans, people would think that Americans will be the least likely people to be converting. But then, we even look at the father of Arizona, Charles Poston. He was the first American Zoroastrian, and actually, I went to his tomb over there in Chandler, Arizona. But just yeah, your story, my story, everybody else's story is just a testament that yeah, this faith is welcoming. And then reading the Gathas and just contemplating what Zarathustra said, he basically said that it was his desire to convert all the living. He never said only Aryans, Persians, or any other local tribe. He said that everybody, I want to know the faith, and that anybody who, um, actually makes my desire of seeing this faith spread worldwide. You would be accepted not only as thy friend, but as one of Mazda's beloved. So, it's a religion that's been very welcoming. Even in the later Pahlavi text, like in the Din card, it says, this religion was created for all of mankind. And I do think that, like with these very principles we've been discussing, if everybody has access to them, we can see a better world like never before.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's an access issue. It's a knowledge and an access issue. I think a lot more people would want to learn more and to join if they were exposed. So, I mean, I don't know that I'm encouraging Zoroastrians to start evangelizing, but at least getting the word out and letting people make an informed decision, I think would be really. I think we would see a lot more people turning to the faith if we were
Absolutely.
able to.
Well, absolutely. But I think with your story, the life you live, I think that will be enough testimony alone for more inspiration for others.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, you got it. Well, so for now, our last two. So for one of them, so we're gonna say, I'm sorry, my mistake. So if you could say one thing to Zarathustra right now, if he's right before you, what would it be?
Yeah, I struggled with this question. I mean, I think the biggest thing is just saying thank you. Thank you for, you know, being receptive to these divine songs and being willing to write them down. It takes a lot of wisdom, I think, to write something that can be sustained and still applicable 4,000 years later. And without that, I think that a lot of people would be worse off. So the main thing is just thank you. I think those songs have really inspired thousands or millions of people.
Absolutely. And going back to that, that really beautifully said because people ask me that same question, and all I gotta say is it's a thank you because I would just say that I was a very lost man at once upon a time, and just knowing that living in this world without these teachings, I'm thinking to myself, like, how did I even survive? How do I live? Because like now I feel just whole and I feel that happiness. I just feel just like life has so much more meaning and purpose. And I feel like I wouldn't say I'm detached from things, but I kind of feel like I'm just at peace with how things are. I just feel like knowing that Mazda and the spirit of Spentimania is within me. I just feel content every day. I wake up and I just feel happy for the smaller things, just happy to be alive and just glorifying Mazda. That just gives me already enough peace and just I never thought, a religion or any God would give it to me. So
Yeah.
I'm like you. It's a big thank you for me.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say, but definitely thank you was the first thing that came to my mind. But I mean, peace is how I would mainly describe how I feel being part of the faith as well. Peace and just having that sense of a community that's working toward the betterment of the world and the betterment of humankind. And I think that is so inspirational. And it makes me want to be a better version of myself every day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I used to be involved in things that are questionable, but just being around this community, seeing how pure they are, and wanting to be honest and truthful, then you just see that, hey, you know what? It feels better to be good and to be around others who uphold that. I mean, that's the greatest thing for you, just to be around a community that wants to better you, better the world, and better us spiritually.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, for our last question, what are your thoughts on Zoroastrianism and its relevance to our modern society and the future of humankind?
Yeah. I mean, I think Zoroastrianism is more relevant today than maybe ever, because we're facing so many worldwide challenges with things like global warming, environmental catastrophes, but also like political discord, poverty. I think that the more people who can walk the path of Asha, the better our society would be. And the goal is long term for every single person to live in perfect unity with each other and with the world that we currently live on. And so I feel like we need Zoroastrianism more than maybe ever.
Absolutely. I do think I'm not trying to tell people to convert by the sword or be zealous, but I do think that it's the antidote because I know that if it changed you, it changed me, and it has these, I mean, these timeless truths, these truths that are just so logical and reasonable. I think that if people can just give it a chance, we can just see so many wonders. And like I was saying earlier, if people can just live by righteousness for the sake of righteousness instead of living every day in a transactional mindset, I do think we can see, much more fairness. We can see more understanding, and people will have more concern and compassion, not only for us as a, species or a race, but for the environment, for the animals, the plants, and, really see that world reflect Asha. Because I do think if you just do right and just do right by all things, you'll see the righteousness just take root and grow and manifest. And I do
Yeah, and
think.
righteousness is supposed to be happiness. So, you know, we can make the world happy and we can make it perfect. So, I think that's just really inspiring. And I think that we would go a long way as a society if everyone was working toward that same thing.
Absolutely, yeah, because in Yasna 43:1, Zarathustra says that, happiness is for those who make others happy. And I do remember one of the songs he says maybe make this world new and fresh. So, by you and I being part of this path, walking this path, I know we're, getting there one step at a time, and I know we'll inspire others.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Katie, yeah, those are the last questions of ours, and I really enjoyed your story. You gave an excellent, commentary of your life, and it was very inspiring. And I know that many people who see your story will see how awesome you are, how inspiring you are, and I know others in the future who will look at this video would want to be just like you.
Well, thank you so much. It was really a privilege to be able to share all this with y'all. And I hope I inspire at least one person to learn a little bit more, or see the world in a slightly different way.
Absolutely. Well, I feel that spirit of Asha within you, and I know you're gonna make great changes, to this world. And I wish you and your family nothing but the best. And I'll pray that Mazda send his infinite blessings to you, and hope to see you around again. Um, and I really do hope maybe who knows, maybe we can have your husband on the show one day too.
Yeah, I think we could probably convince him to get on.
All righty. Well, you have a wonderful day. God bless you, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Awesome. God bless you too. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to this episode, everybody. We'll be coming around again soon. Stay tuned. Bye bye. Alrighty. Let me
Awesome. All right, that was